You say your dog's name, or you ask if they want to go for a walk.
And there it is. That little head tilt. The ears perk up, the eyes lock in, and your brain melts a little. Most people think it's just cute. But a brand new study from late 2025 just found something almost nobody knows. When your dog tilts their head, their brain is doing the exact same thing yours does when you process language. And the side they tilt toward might tell you more than you think. In this video, I'm going to walk you through every theory scientists have for why dogs do this, including what researchers just discovered in October 2025 that completely changed how we think about it. By the end, you'll know exactly what your dog's head tilt actually means, why some dogs do it constantly and others almost never do, and what it reveals about what's happening inside their brain when they look at you. Stick around to the end because I'll show you a simple test you can do at home tonight to see where your own dog lands. If you ask the average person why dogs tilt their heads, they'll tell you it's about hearing. The dog is trying to pinpoint where a sound is coming from, like adjusting a satellite dish. And on the surface, this makes sense. Dogs have incredible hearing, about 4 times better than ours at long distances. Tilting the head changes the angle of the ears, which could theoretically help locate a sound. But here's the problem. When researchers actually tested this, the results didn't add up. Dogs tilt their heads even when the sound source isn't moving. They tilt them when the sound is right in front of them. And this is the big one. They tilt to the same side every time, regardless of where the sound is coming from. If head tilting were really about pinpointing sound, dogs would tilt left when the sound came from the left, right when it came from the right. They don't. So if it's not about hearing, what is it? In 2013, a psychologist named Stanley Coren proposed something different. He noticed that dogs with longer muzzles, like greyhounds and Labradors, seemed to tilt their heads way more than flat-faced breeds like pugs and bulldogs. His theory was that the muzzle gets in the way. When a dog looks straight at you, their snout actually blocks part of their view of your face, especially the lower half, around your mouth. By tilting their head, they get a clearer view of your facial expressions. Coren ran a small study and found exactly what he predicted. Dogs with longer snouts tilted their heads more often than dogs with flat faces. This is interesting because dogs read human facial expressions remarkably well. Studies have shown they can tell the difference between a happy face and an angry face, even on photos of strangers. So it makes sense they'd want to see your face clearly. But Coren's study was small, and it didn't explain why dogs tilt at sounds they can't even see, like when you're in another room and call their name. So vision is part of the answer, but it's not the whole answer. Here's where it gets really interesting. In 2021, researchers at the Family Dog Project in Hungary, one of the leading dog cognition labs in the world, were running a completely different study. They were looking at gifted dogs, the rare ones who can memorize the names of dozens of toys. These dogs are unusual. Most dogs can't reliably learn the name of even 2 toys, but the gifted ones, almost all border collies, could remember 10, 20, even 30 toy names. One dog named Whiskey correctly retrieved 54 out of 59 named toys. While running this study, the researchers noticed something strange. Whenever they asked the gifted dogs to fetch a specific toy by name, the dogs would tilt their heads, right before correctly identifying it. So they ran the numbers. The gifted dogs tilted their heads 43% of the time when they heard the name of a familiar toy. The typical dogs? Just 2%. That's a massive difference. And it suggested the head tilt isn't about hearing or seeing at all. It's about thinking. The researchers proposed that the head tilt is what concentration looks like in dogs. When they hear a word that matters to them, a word connected to a memory, a meaning, a mental image, they tilt. It's the dog version of what humans do when we close our eyes to remember something, a physical signal that the brain is working hard. But that study had a small sample size, and it left bigger questions wide open. Was head tilting really tied to language, or just to anything new and surprising? And what was actually happening in the dog's brain when they did it? That's where the 2025 study comes in. In October 2025, a research team led by Colleen Buckley and Courtney Sexton at George Washington University and Virginia Tech published a much bigger follow-up. They studied 103 dogs across 7 breed groups. They used AI to analyze the head tilts down to the exact angle. And they tested 4 different conditions, from no communication at all, to making eye contact, to speaking unfamiliar phrases, to using familiar words in a normal, happy tone. The results were striking. Dogs almost never tilted in the first 3 conditions. But when their owners spoke familiar words in a normal tone, the number of head tilts shot way up. This confirmed what the 2021 researchers suggested. Head tilts are specifically connected to processing language the dog already knows, not random sounds, not surprising sounds, familiar language. But here's where it gets really interesting. When the team analyzed which direction dogs tilted, they found dogs preferred to tilt to the right, and in humans, a right side bias for language is a signature of left hemisphere language processing, the same hemisphere we use for words, meaning, and recall. In other words, when your dog tilts their head to the right while you're talking to them, they're processing your speech using the same side of their brain that you use to process speech. There was one more surprise. Neutered male dogs tilted their heads way more often than spayed female dogs. 55% of neutered males tilted, compared to only 25% of spayed females. And this mirrors what happens in human brains too. Studies have shown that males tend to process language in a more lateralized, one-sided way. Females tend to use both hemispheres more equally, meaning they might be doing the same processing without needing the visible head tilt to show it. So if your female dog doesn't tilt much, it doesn't mean she's not listening. She might just be processing things more evenly across her brain, the same way many human women do. So here's what we actually know now, putting it all together. Your dog tilts their head when they're processing something meaningful, usually a familiar word they recognize, or a tone they're trying to interpret. The tilt is connected to language processing in the left side of their brain, the same side you use to process language. The longer their snout, the more likely they are to tilt, because they need to see your face to read context. And male dogs tilt more visibly than female dogs because of how their brains are wired, not because females understand less. This is also why border collies, poodles, and other highly word-aware breeds tilt constantly, while pugs and French bulldogs tilt much less. It's not just about face shape, it's about how much your dog is actively processing your words. If your dog tilts their head a lot when you talk to them, it's a real sign that they're paying attention. Building associations, trying to make sense of what you're saying, they're not just being cute, they're working. I promised you a test at the start of this video. Here it is. Pick one of your dog's toys. The favorite one, ideally something they get excited about. Give it a specific name. Something simple, like bear or rope. Use that name consistently for a week. Every time you hand them the toy, say the name. Every time you play with it, say the name. After a week, sit on the couch with the toy hidden somewhere out of sight. Look at your dog and say, in a normal tone, "Where's Bear?" Watch what happens. If your dog tilts their head, that's the sign. They're searching their memory. They're trying to match the word to the object. According to the research, that head tilt means your dog has formed a real association between the sound and the thing. They've learned a word. And pay attention to which direction they tilt. If it's to the right, that's the side associated with left hemisphere language processing. The same side of the brain you're using right now to understand me. If they don't tilt, that's also fine. Most dogs don't. Especially female dogs. It doesn't mean they're not listening. It just means their brain might be working a little differently. So the next time your dog tilts their head at you, don't just think it's cute. Think about what's actually happening inside their brain. They're listening. They're remembering. And if they tilt to the right, they're doing it with the same part of their brain that you use to understand language. Which is honestly way cuter than just cute. If you want to know what other things your dog does that have hidden meanings, watch the next video, where I explain why your dog stares at you and what the science says is actually happening when they do.